Give credit to Mike Norvell for taking blame for the Georgia Tech game.
You are Locked On Seminoles, your daily podcast on the Florida State Seminoles. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome back into Locked On Seminoles. I am your host, Brian Smith. Thank you for making this your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Seminoles football with me. Today's show is brought to you by 5 Hour Energy. 5 Hour Energy fixes tired fast. Zero sugar, convenient, and a portable size. It's the perfect pick-me-up for getting stuff done. Go to 5hourenergy.com and use promo code LOCKEDONCFB to get $20 or 20% off your first order. This offer is only valid through September 30th on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. Go to 5hourenergy.com today. Give props to Mike Norvell. Not a lot of coaches go to the length that he did and not just say, oh, I deserve some of the blame, this and that. He went a little bit further. Mike Norvell, the expression on his face, Mike Norvell, the entire body language, really could have done it by itself. But here's the opening quote before he just went into it. The first one that I thought was interesting. Quote Mike Norvell, "I'm sick that we didn't give you a better outcome." Like it looked like he was physically in pain. He cares. Some guys are happy to collect the $8 million a year or whatever it is Mike's making, and I would be happy to do so too. If he wants to give me some money, I'd be glad to take it. But that was a good start. A few moments later, Norvell had the following comment. Quote Mike Norvell, "I take total responsibility and ownership." Now, I want you to think to your life in general. Whether it's a boss you work for, maybe it's a parent, maybe it's a teacher. It could be the bully down the street that everybody finally beat up on later, whatever. How many people openly and willingly, on camera, take full responsibility for a failure? It's not exactly the highest of percentages. As human beings, we are fallible, and it's one of the things we struggle with in this society daily, responsibility. For him to offer that up in his press conference this week is unique. I finally got around to going through it over and over to get a bunch of quotes and everything. That's why I'm doing it a day late. I had to go to the driver's license branch, had to get that done. That wasn't much fun, but this is a very important thing for the program. Forget the BC game. I'll get to that in a second. He's got a comment or two about that I want to knock on a little bit. But seeing Norvell do that made me exhale a little. And if you're a Florida State fan, it should make you exhale a little bit too. It's one thing for somebody to say, yeah, the coaching staff, we've got to do better. I hear that line all the time, especially in the NFL. They make the head coach come out there. The assistants really don't talk. You don't get players all that much except for after the game. It's a very limited corporate setting for how the media is able to get to anything. And it's scripted. Those guys do not want to deal with media. College, it's a little more access, usually, unless you're Michigan and Jim Harbaugh. He was the guy that never did. But they do a pretty good job in general. But I think Norvell, the way he did it, with his body language, might have been the best of anybody I've seen. Last point about just the accepting responsibility, then I'll move on. Some more issues. I think that this is going to help his team more than he knows. Some of these kids and those parents, I guarantee you the parents watch the press conference. What is he saying about my kid? I guarantee you that's going on. If you were a parent of a high school and they had high school press conferences, don't kid yourself. You'd listen to. I think that there are going to be a few guys that may not care one way or the other. Those guys aren't going to be contributors anyway. But it's cool when people have your back and you didn't perform well. If that doesn't make you feel good as a Florida State football player, why are you in Tallahassee? What are you doing? You need your leader to step forward and make that statement. Good for them for having him. It's probably why a lot of them decided to come to Tallahassee. He's a good guy. I gained a lot of respect for Mike Norvell watching that press conference. Now, he still has to go out and coach more and let the records show if they go 0-2 and they lay an egg against BC, like if it's just a bad performance, not BC plays out of its mind, while this is nice, it's not good enough. And then we got other problems. Just throwing that out there for later in case that happens. But for now, that's the best he could have done to start the press conference, to kind of give a galvanizing spiritual thought process about what happened. And now we move on to something a little more in tune with football in general. And what do I know is we need it. How do I put this? Florida State, they had so many errors in the game. I was thinking before I turned on the press conference, I wonder what Norvell is going to start with. Like, is there going to be an area? Is he going to generalize? What is Mike going to do? And he had a perfect quote for this. It's a little bit of a generalization, but somebody asked a question to the point of, like, what do you got to work on? And for the BC game, great quote here, because I could not agree more. And I actually mentioned this earlier this week on Locked On Seminoles. You got to do better for yourself. Some of the fundamental things, and a lot of people, by the way, that comment on YouTube, hats off to you for making this. A lot of people talked about this. I had several that related to this. Amen to each and every one of you. Quote Norvell, we've got to go and just get better, meaning focus on your own team. If you can't block well, if you're inconsistent with tackling, pass protection goes through around a quarter, mostly in the second quarter, where it's abysmal. Receivers, for whatever the reason, aren't making plays down the field. I'll talk about that momentarily right after this. And overall, you're not clutch, because even in a tie game in the fourth quarter, when you play bad and you had a chance to get off the mat, the defense gets punched in the mouth again. You lay an egg. The first thing you got to do is fix you. For anybody out there that struggled at their job, struggled with parenting, family life, there's all kinds of things you can relate to. Sometimes it's not going to go well. You may have to revisit something that, quite honestly, you don't want, and it is about as uncomfortable as it gets. I'm no different. Norvell was saying that about his team, about his coaching staff, and that's just one quote. Again, we got to go out and just get better. That's from Mike Norvell. But he went on to talk about this is like across the board. He didn't say it was special teams. He didn't say it was defense. He didn't say it was offense. He made it clear that the Noles need to get better across the board. I mean, the field goal kicker, I don't think we need to worry about. He's the one guy, like Fitzgerald, that, dude, he is bonkers good. 2 kicks over 50 yards in a game. Somebody look that up for me. Has a Noles kicker ever kicked 2 in a game to open the season? I'm assuming Janikowski did it at some point, because he's maybe the best kicker I've ever seen, but maybe not. He played in Arrow, and Florida State was dominant. He didn't kick a lot of field goals, so maybe not, but that's interesting. When we come back, we're going to continue on, and we're going to kind of delve into a little bit of the BC discussion, and then I'm going to give a little bit of a snippet for what I'm going to do on the second show later this evening. I'm going to talk about some of the defensive players the Noles are going to be going against. That is next here on Locked On Seminoles. Have you tried 5-Hour Energy lately? As a reminder, you can find it right there at the counter at your local convenience store, drugstore, grocery store, whatever. There's probably one near you right now that you've walked right by. So after lunch, are you tired? Do you need a little pick-me-up? You're not alone. In fact, research shows more than 70% hit a wall at some point after lunch. 5-Hour Energy helps a person get going again instead of just crashing and feeling lethargic. Before your workout's another opportunity. That's something I need to do later today. If you want to get a little extra pep before you go to your workout, 5-Hour Energy is an opportunity for you. Getting an extra few sets in every day is going to make you a better person in terms of how you feel and how you look. That's not a bad thing at all. So keep in mind, 0 sugar. It's convenient. It's portable size. I mean, they're small bottles. It's a perfect pick-me-up for whenever you need it. 5-Hour Energy is a great opportunity for you. So if you go to 5hourenergy.com, and that's the number 5 before hourenergy.com, and get 5-Hour Energy product, you can get it right now today. Use promo code LOCKEDONCFB to receive 20% off your order. This offer is valid through the 30th of September on one order and cannot be used with other promotions. The code is not good on subscription orders. Go to 5-Hour Energy today to get started. It is also brought to you by FanDuel. FanDuel is America's #1 sports book, and it is awesome to check out. They've got all the scores and updates that you're going to need, all the stats. Make sure you check it out today. You've heard us talk about FanDuel. It is America's #1 sports book for all that. And we have something a little different for you as well. Now through the 22nd, FanDuel customers can bet $5. They get $5, or you bet $5 and you get 3 weeks free trial of NFL Sunday Ticket off YouTube and YouTube TV. Then with your YouTube TV base plan, you'll be able to watch every regular season Sunday afternoon out of market game. Those are the ones you're frustrated you can't see. You can go and get those. Also, you will need a Google account, and it is the basic form of payment, and you can also cancel whenever you'd like. Visit FanDuel.com/lockedon to download America's #1 sportsbook today. So, as we kind of transition a little bit towards BC, still sticking with Norvell's press conference, here's something else that I wanted to kind of go with. He doubled down on that last statement that I made, that we've got to go out and just get better. A few moments later, and this is when I started thinking about BC, this kind of how their program has been traditional. We'll see if it is under Bill O'Brien. We have to focus on ourselves and adapt and focus on what shows up. Somebody had asked him about preparing for BC, and of course, the downside of preparing for your own concerns, no way around it. There are going to be a few things that you probably aren't ready for with BC. Silver lining, they haven't played a game yet. There's no current game film. You haven't seen Bill's offense with Castellanos or anything anyway. You really need to focus. I think the offense actually needs to be a little more focused this week, because you got to keep the ball out of Castellanos' hands. He needs to stand over on the sidelines next to O'Brien. But I don't disqualify the notion that defense needs a lot of help too. Anyway, he knows that they're probably going to have to work on a few more fundamental things during all the practices than they would like. And as I talked about numerous times now on this podcast, Florida State's got to hit more in practice. He didn't come out and say it. I knew he wouldn't in that comment, but I get it. They have to tackle better. Nobody wants to go into the season, play as poorly as Florida State did. And then at the same time, here's the big one. You hit and you go through a lot of risk, and you're going to lose some guys for whatever reason or banged up. The last thing you want to do is go into your second game in a must-win. They can't go down 0-2 in the ACC. That would be colossal disaster. Just cut to that chase. But they got to hit more this week. They got to focus on themselves. I 100% agree with Norvell. If they do not, the season's going to go the wrong direction in a really, really fast pace. It's not going to work. So what do you think they're going to miss out on? Ask yourself that. If you want to reply or whatever, think about it. But what did Florida State suck at last week? Containment, wrapping up, and driving through the ball carrier. My goodness, they were awful at it. How many times did Haynes King get an extra yard? Jamal Haynes get a couple extra yards. They tackled high. They played with high leverage. Could you imagine the number of drills? And I forget what that thing's called, where like the linebackers go through the chute or whatever they call it to stay low. I'd run that thing until they about fell over. The linebackers and the D linemen, Farmer, whoever you want to pick one. They got to focus on themselves. It's going to be an extension to fall camp this week. That's not very fun for him to talk about, and he's going to shy away from that because he doesn't want his players to be upset, I'm sure, but they got to know. You can't perform like that, embarrass themselves and the coaches in the university, and expect anything less. Good for them for admitting it, though, as a staff. They had to come to that conclusion. Then Mike goes to the podium and talks about it. Nothing else that makes me feel better, because some coaches just want to fix things with like play calling and kind of putting it off on first game, this and that. He ate it up, and then he expanded on it. That was awesome. The last quote from Norvell that I want to discuss: we didn't go into the game not wanting to stretch the ball vertically. There's been a lot of talk about DJU and the entirety of the passing game being screens and stuff like that. According to Norvell, for those that didn't watch the press conference, he said they had a couple shot plays, and based on what Georgia Tech had called, I saw this coming last week, and I told you that it was coming. A cover 2, cover 3, playing off. They're going to try to force everything underneath. And they did. So he said that DJ checked out of a few, which was technically the right answer. However, he didn't elaborate, which this is the part that concerns me. If you want to complain about anything today, listen very closely. Norvell was smart in his comments, but if you're a smart football fan, you'll figure this part out. He said that they had, and I'm paraphrasing here, I should have written this down, but he said they had a couple more, but it didn't work out. Like, that is as generic coach speak as you could get. And I'm guessing that either A, receiver, tight end, running back, the main receiver on the play, number 1, didn't work out because of technique, he got beat. And or number 2 got beat. There was maybe maybe they had a double post or something, whatever. When you get your shot and you're the guy in the play that's the number 1 on a deep ball, man, don't get that. And then, of course, it could be, if it's not A with the receiver screwing up, what about B? What if it was one of the plays where the pass rush was just really good and Florida State's pass blocking was, well, horrendous? Because they had a lot of that. There were plays where Florida State's maybe 2 seconds DJ had. I mean, it was just a joke. If you've got a shot play called on that, well, heck, the guy didn't even get into his break on a post or maybe a 7 ball, which is a corner route. He doesn't have a chance. And then, of course, you still got to put some possibility on DJ as well. Maybe he didn't pull the trigger. Or maybe he started to, if he'd have just done it a quick second, just a quick moment before, he could get off. And then he sensed the pressure, play's dead, and he's got to move the pot, whatever. These plays have a smaller window for success, but if you execute them, 50-yard plays never go out of style. Florida State could have screwed up on any of those 3. And then, of course, I got to say the last part, it could have been a combination of any of those 3, maybe even all 3. Because Florida State offensively had so much ineptitude. Good grief. It was not just bad, but like, my goodness, like, how can you be any more inept in key opportunities than what they were? It's really bad. And I hope Florida State, for the fans' sake, going into Doak on Monday, they get to see a little more explosiveness in offense in particular. You would think with the 5th-year senior and all these offensive ones, there would be a little more congruency. And I know that it's not easy, but still, that was surprising to me. To wrap up the show today, we're going to talk about some of the games that are played tonight. There's a few ACC games, etc. We're going to talk about that next to wrap up the show here on Locked On Seminoles. All right. Have you tried Factor meals? And if you're like me, are you tired of preparing meals because you live by yourself and it's not the easiest thing to get meals rolling one after the other? Well, here's an idea. Have somebody else help you with that. Fuel up with Factor's no prep, no mess meals. Meet your wellness goals thanks to the menu of chef-crafted meals with options like Calorie Smart, Protein Plus, Keto. There's also Factor's fresh, never frozen meals are dietitian approved and ready to eat in just 2 minutes. So no matter how busy you are, it's a lot easier for you to enjoy nutritious, great tasting meals. With 35 different meals and more than 60 add-ons to choose from every week, you'll always have new flavors to explore. Crush your wellness goals this year with dietitian approved meals and ingredients that you can trust. Head to factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 and use code LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month. That code again is LockedOnCollege50 at factormeals.com/LockedOnCollege50 to get 50% off your first box plus 20% off your next month while your subscription is active. Make sure that you're also coming back to see Locked On Seminoles every day. I truly appreciate everybody that's stopping in. It's awesome. Come in to see us here at Locked On Seminoles. It's a lot of fun, and we're going to find out what's going to happen with the Noles real quick. We got a lot of updates to come between now and that game against BC, so stop back in. Also, make sure you check out Locked On College Football, ACC, SEC, Big 10, Big 12, all the previews for the games. We got shows for that are dropping all the time. We've got news about what's going on with the settlement potential at the ACC, Florida State, ACC, Clemson, all that fun stuff, the playoffs, everything like that. Make sure you check out Locked On College Football. It's a lot of fun. All right, now let's talk a little bit about one of the most important things that's going to happen this entire weekend. The ACC needs to represent itself. I don't normally talk about a lot of teams outside of Florida State unless it's a recruiting thing. It's a battle with Florida State, but the ACC hasn't gotten the most positive news lately. So I just want to highlight a couple of games that are going to happen. And I want to talk first off about the North Carolina game just briefly. ACC needs some juice. It'll actually help Florida State too. These teams win when they play them with a better record, you get more respect. So first game, Minnesota plays against North Carolina. This is a wild kind of deal. I know this game's coming up, 8 o'clock Fox game. It's in Minneapolis. I'm not sure what really Minnesota has. There is one thing that I really want to touch on though. They still don't know if it's Max Johnson or Connor Harrell or both. That's the quarterback for the Tar Heels. Really? This way, you got a guy that's played at LSU and he's played at Texas A&M. Now he's up in Chapel Hill. You got Harrell, who's been, I believe it was Arkansas and Carolina, back Carolina. You would think with the experience and all that around this, they would know. But apparently not. That game is very intriguing to me. Carolina's probably going to take a step back, and I get that because Drake May is not there. Okay, I get it. But if they lose to Minnesota, that is not, I repeat, that is not good for the ACC. And quite honestly, that would be kind of embarrassing. But we'll see. The other game that I'm really interested in is just to see NC State's defense. They're playing Western Carolina. I have no idea. It's 7 p.m. on ACC Network. I have no idea what to expect out of Western Carolina, and I'm sure they're going to lose. But at the same time, the quarterback from Coastal comes over to NC State. He only had like 3 picks last year. Doesn't turn the ball over. They've got a really good defense. They're going to be better than they were last year on offense, just by default. They got Rogers that transferred in from Ohio State. It's a receiver. And they got the Concepcion kid, who's a really talented player at receiver. They could be a team to watch. If they can't hammer Western Carolina, though, I know it's first game, but that would tell me there's a mix that's not that great. We'll see. They also lost C.J. Clark, their nose guard, one of the guys, to Miami as a transfer. That's going to hurt them a little bit. But they still have a lot of guys, and their defensive coaching staff is legit. Let's see what North Carolina State has. I think they're going to be a pretty good football team, but we need to see. Wake Forest, they play North Carolina A&T. I'm sure they'll win. But they're another team that's got a battle going on at the quarterback position. If you're struggling, and it's Hank Bachmeier, the guy that was at Boise State, or Michael Kern, if you're struggling on offense and then you come into the next season and your quarterback play still not figured out right before the game, should you feel very good if you're a Wake Forest fan? I would think not. This concerns me, and I'm not, before the record, I'm not stating here that Wake Forest is going to lose. Just be clear. I don't think they're going to lose to North Carolina A&T, but that game's 7 o'clock ESPN Plus and ACC Extra. If you screw around and you have a pick 6 or something, then you could. Let's see how that goes. As far as just other games, I'm going to kind of look at the Missouri game against Missouri State just for fun. Arkansas plays Arkansas Pine Bluff. You might take a little look at that. The game that intrigues me out of conference the most is North Dakota State at Colorado. North Dakota State maybe not having all the 5 stars and 4 stars. Obviously, they're an FCS team, but that's a really good program. If they beat Colorado, it'll be hilarious. I'm not sure how I would think about that beyond that just being funny, because they've talked a lot of junk. Dion saying they were going to go to the playoff earlier this year in particular is hilarious. The other team that intrigues me a little bit is Illinois. They play Eastern Illinois, which doesn't matter, but they're well coached. Their defense is still good. Can they at least be a decent team in the Big Ten? I really don't know, but it's interesting when some of those mid-level programs look to be up a little bit. Pay attention to Illinois. If they're a little better, that could make the Big Ten a little more topsy-turvy than what it's probably going to be anyway. Thank you once again for making Locked On Seminoles your first listen each and every day. Truly appreciate you stopping in to talk some Noles football with me. Now make sure you go check out Locked On College Football. My guy Spencer McLaughlin does a great job over there. Again, it's a lot of fun. I will have a show later tonight. We're going to talk a little bit more. Didn't get to it in this show. They got 4 guys up front on defense that are decent, to say the least. Florida State's offensive line better have a good week of practice. If they do not, oh boy, that may not end well for Florida State. So that'll be probably after 9 o'clock tonight. I got some things going on that may be a 10 or 11 o'clock show, but it will be up later tonight. Everybody have a good day. Take care.